We are fortunate to have Dr. Subramanian Swamy ji here. As you know, he has been 6-time member of parliament. He has been elected. He has been very involved in the Indian political scene for a long time. In Indian politics, to have an intellectual and academician is a rare commodity these days. So we are fortunate to have Swamy ji, and I'm going to ask him some questions about his life, about his achievements, and about his future. How did you get involved in politics in the first place?
I was originally an academician. I wanted to be a professor, and I came to Harvard. I got a PhD. Nobel laureates were my thesis advisor, and they were all greatly my supporters also. And therefore, I became on the faculty when a time when Asians being on the faculty at Harvard was a rare occasion. And in fact, I was the first Asian to be in the economics department as a professor. But then after about 7-8 years, I began entertaining the notion of going back, and I was offered a professorship, a full professorship at the IIT Delhi. So I grabbed it and went back to India. That's how I went back to India. And in India, when I came to India around the time when Mrs. Gandhi had split the Congress party, she relied on the communists for support, and she became very left-wing. Banks were nationalized, and I was against this. I thought that India needed market economy. That's natural for India. So I started speaking against it, and I got a lot of support from the students. I never used it in class,
Right.
but outside in the evening, the hostels and various common places like India International Center in Delhi, we used to have seminars. I used to debate the communists, defeat them. I became, with my Harvard background, I became a kind of a glamour figure in the intellectual circles. So that activated the communists who persuaded Indira Gandhi to support my removal from IIT professorship. Now,
Right.
that was very legally impossible because I was a full professor, and there was no way you could remove me unless I've committed some crime. But they one day just sent me a letter saying you're dismissed. No inquiry, nothing. And when I went and spoke to the authorities, said, how can you do this? They said, well, go and fight in court. We have done it. Let's see what you can do. I did go to court, and but it took me 21 years to win that case. So in the meantime, I had to either come back to America and settle down, or do something else in India, because the academics, they blocked no other place I could get a professorship. So I decided to enter politics. That's how I entered politics. I entered politics through Jansang, and very soon got elected. And having got elected, the emergency came. The emergency became prominent. That's how the whole Janata Party came to power in '77. And then Prime Minister and the Himachal Chief Minister, Mr. Shanta Kumar, they both got me appointed as a member of the Board of Governors of IIT Delhi, the very body which sacked me. So it was a vindication. Later on, the courts reinstated me, but then I was a minister at that time, so I could not continue as professor, so I resigned.
So it's an interesting story. Even I was not knowing that you are not a career politician,
Yeah.
but you are so famous that we think that you must be in politics from your childhood. So it's very interesting to know that an academician who was not a career politician entered into politics. What was the reaction from your family, from your wife, and from your in India, politicians are considered like gundas or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But
Well, in the beginning, I think naturally, because my father was a civil servant and my father-in-law was also a civil servant. My wife was brought up as a daughter of an ICS officer, and so they had a very strong dislike for politics and so on. But then these events which happened, the unfairness of it, and the fact that it was done by the communists, they then ended up supporting me. I'm very happy to say my father-in-law actually bought me a house in Delhi and said, you don't have to worry about where to live and who's going to pay the rent. I donate a house to you.
right.
So there was support, concern, of course, that will I survive in politics? It's such a dirty field. I'm a new man, etc. So those were the concerns, but that I had no alternative but to go into politics if I was to remain in India. There were many, many relatives who thought I should go back to America. In fact, they thought I should have made a mistake in coming in the first place. But I must say that my family and my daughters were too young that time to protest. One was 5 years old, another was 2.5 years old. So, I had really no problem from the family.
Um, it is very unfortunate that in India, which is known to be the largest democracy in the world, that certain things like your case that you
Yes.
were teaching as a professor,
Yes.
and then you were vindicated because of
Yeah.
your particular views about
Yes.
politics.
Yes.
So it is really unfortunate that in India these things do happen,
Yes.
and you had to enter into politics to really
Yes.
change that kind of system. So.
Yes.
It's a very interesting story for all of us,
Yes.
but and it is wonderful that we have people, educated people like brother. I would like that every educated person should really enter into politics, because if you really want to make changes in India, we
Yes.
need people and persons like you. Now coming back to your political party,
I entered first as Jansang,
at Johnson.
but Jansang then merged into Janata Party during the emergency.
So how did you land up with the ministerial position as a minister?
Well, first time I was offered a ministership was in 1977. But it was a junior rank minister. They didn't offer me cabinet rank on the grounds I was too young.
Right.
But I thought.
What was your sorry to interrupt? What was your age when you
Minister? I think also there was some opposition from Vajpayee, and he thought that I was being projected by RSS as his rival. So he was keen on eliminating me. So he knew I would not accept a junior ministership. So at that time I then opted for party post, and then continued Janata Party when BJP was formed and all the Jansang people left Janata Party. And in 1990, with the help of in alliance with Rajiv Gandhi, I was able to create a new government headed by Chandrasekhar. That's when I first became a minister.
right?
This government was succeeded by Narasimha Rao's Congress government, who wanted me also as a minister, but he wanted me to join Congress party, which I refused. So he appointed me as a chairman of a commission on GATT and WTO with cabinet rank. So
Right.
I have attended cabinet meetings, had a cabinet rank position, so on. So I was twice minister that way.
So what are your notable achievements as a minister which you think that you really made a mark in the Indian political scene?
Well, I think most the reasons why people know me in the length and breadth of India is not got to do with my ministerial work, but more as in terms of opposing the government and in fact doing as an independent member, as a person without being in government, doing it. For example, my campaign against market socialism and in favor of market economy. Almost everybody admits. In fact, the other day, Manmohan Singh made in a speech, he said the first person who said that socialism will not work in India, when everybody was saying it will work for India, it's best for India, was Swamy. So he has gone on record. So that's one great achievement. The second achievement I did was I got both China and Israel relations improved with India, and both countries they recognize that. In fact, in Israel they have planted 10 trees in Jerusalem in my memory, in the memory of my contribution to the Indo-Israel friendship. In the case of China, my friendship ultimately led to them agreeing, which everybody thought will never happen, but they agreed to allow Hindu pilgrims to go to Kailash Mansarovar.
Right.
They had closed the door, and in fact their top leader Deng Xiaoping said, you must go there first. So I agreed to go first, and I was the first Tirth Yatri after 35 years to Kailash and Mansarovar. And Kailash Mansarovar's development, etc. was my contribution. Later on, when I became Commerce Minister, I signed the first trade agreement, which is considered landmark between India and China, and today China is the largest trade partner of India. So then of course economic reform package, as a Commerce Minister I produced it, which Narasimha Rao implemented. Although the credit has largely gone to Manmohan Singh, but actually it was Narasimha Rao and myself who did it.
So basically, you laid the foundation.
I
on
prepared
which
the package.
Yes.
I prepared the package. I prepared the intellectual foundation by arguing against it for years and years, and created an intellectual climate for it. But the package for economic reform was introduced during Janata Party government of Chandrasekhar's prime ministership, and that time I introduced it, and thereafter Narasimha Rao government appointed it, and of course I was a minister rank position in his government too. Later on, I became famous for filing PILs on corruption. I brought many politicians to book. Mr. Ramakrishna Hegde was thoroughly exposed. In fact, his political career was destroyed because of that. Similarly, Jayalalitha's matter, in case I also filed, she went to jail in one of my cases. So I became famous in those PILs. The last 5-6 years, I've become very well known in the country because of my propagation of the idea that Hindus are under siege. And the latest achievement I have is that I was able to argue and successfully argue in the Supreme Court that Ram Setu cannot be touched, cannot be broken. And the Supreme Court upheld this view and asked the government to find another way of doing the same project without touching Ram Setu. I'm at it now. I'm working on many of these other aspects of the Hindu cause, and I think the most important thing now in India is to have a Hindu renaissance. I mean, when I was offered it's 36 years old.
I think, as you said, that after 35 years, you were one of the first pilgrims going to Kailash Mas. I think you have the blessings of Kailash, Lord Shiva and Kailash, and then you have worked on Ram Setu. So I think you have the blessings.
To that extent, yes. Without Deva Anugrah, nobody can function in India.